Hello, everyone. Welcome to another review episode of our previous week's picks. I'm your host, Dadman Walking 55. A great, wonderful Sunday that we have today, and it's going to be an interesting show. Still working on the format with this a little bit. Trying to do some different things today, and have a little fun. Try to expand the review into a little more of a discussion into more in-depth football things. Because sometimes 5 minutes is not enough. And plus, there was such a great weekend of football out there this weekend that is there's a lot to talk about. And we do more of our recaps on our weekly podcast, the full show. But hey, tonight there was one game yesterday that demands a little more attention than your normal weeks. So, like I said, hey, welcome. It's a wonderful Sunday evening, at least where I am. It may be afternoon, or maybe, who knows, it may be Monday morning wherever you are. But glad you're here today. Just need to check on a few things real quick. Looks like we're good. All righty. And thank you for your patience. And this is a fun operation. I tell you what, I've learned a lot over the last 7 weeks of how to run these things, do this stuff. What can go wrong will go wrong. And when you hear a host complain or say that they forget things or can't keep up with everything, guess what? It's true. The fastest way to learn it is do your own stream. So, hey, it's rolling out there tonight. So without any further ado, I would just go down and say some hellos to people. Of course, always a hello to the great and glorious Mrs. Dadman Walking 55, who puts together all of these graphics and wonderful things that you see. It's a labor of love, and I can't afford her real pay rate, so she goes to Amazon, and we got a new Fortnite skin last night. So, hey, I got to pay her somehow. We'll say hi to Small Time Republic. Howdy. Good to see you again. Missed you a couple times. Hey, maybe there's hope for your Auburn Tigers one day. There's hope for everybody. But glad to see you here tonight, Small Time Republic. Hey to gaming or what? Hey, man, glad you could stop by tonight. Thank you. I can't remember if you've been here before, but I remember you over awards, and hope you're doing well today. Thank you very much. And she's geeky. Hello, sports fans. Hey, thank you for coming by tonight, and it was a pleasure to talk to you on Twitter yesterday as Tennessee, I think, tested everybody's nerves with that game. So, hey, nice to see you here tonight. And, of course, CJ, glad to have you as always. We played some Fortnite earlier today, but thank you. Let's see. Oh my, that's interesting. Yeah, which one would that be? Yeah, just the smallest game in the last year that occurred yesterday. And let's see, a lot of hellos in there, back and forth to everybody. Glad y'all are here. Small Town Republic, there's hope for Auburn circa 2024. Maybe so. I don't know. Maybe, we could talk about them and things, and the tendency to change coaches quite often over there. But always keep hope. You never know, because I know that we'll talk about a little bit with what the poor people in Tennessee had faced for probably the better part of 20 years. So there's always hope. And she's geeky. Absolutely. My nerves were so shot, I couldn't even be mad about the hockey game. Yeah, thank you for clarifying the Ducks, because I was not sure which Ducks you were talking about with that. That makes sense with Anaheim Ducks for hockey. I was thinking Oregon Ducks because believe it or not, folks, I will talk Pac-12 football. I love Pac-12 football. I love late night West Coast football, staying up to 2 o'clock in the morning. My team on the West Coast is the Oregon State Beavers. So when you said Ducks yesterday, I was thinking Beavers. So, yes. And there's not a joke there, CJ. They're Oregon State Beavers. So, but hey, thanks for being here tonight. And like I want to try to do a little bit something. If you have questions on the way, feel free to throw out a question. I'll do the best I can to answer it. If I don't know, I won't know. But let's have some fun talking a little bit of football as we do this. Well, as we usually do with this show, we'll start off with wow, I'm not used to the chat moving fast like this. That's hilarious. CJ says Cubs won a pennant, so anything can happen. Yes, actually, they won a World Series a few years ago, and even the Red Sox won a World Series once or twice. So Oregon stomped us several years ago, but the fans were so sweet, I couldn't help but root for them every once in a while. Yep. It's always good when you have good fan bases like that know how to handle winning. It's not always possible, and I've got to say I can't judge people because I've had my moments, and Mrs. will tell you where I've not been so nice. So you get emotional, you get riled up with your rivals, and sometimes you just do silly stuff. But at the end of the day, we all should take it as a game, have fun with it, and hey, enjoy what we have because we could lose it very easily sometime. I know the 2020 season was a really odd year, and it didn't feel like football. So I tell you, what I saw last night in Knoxville made my heart warm. That's what college football should be. Storming the field, tearing down the goalposts, forget the league and the fines, but whatever. But you know what? The fun and the love of the game and people coming together like that. I have not seen a goalpost game in quite a while. I think it was really, really awesome to see. So I'm stuttering over it because it's good. I remember one year in 84, the first time the Gators beat the Bulldogs in Jacksonville for the first time in a number of years. It was a long drought. This Gator fans stormed the field. It was a 50-50 neutral site game. They stormed the field down, tore down a goalpost, and had that. Of course, the next year in 85, Florida became number one by beating Auburn the week before, spent 1 week at number one, and the Dogs beat them 24-3. And then the Dogs fans wanted to storm the field, and that was a riot ensued at that day. So there's plenty of that on YouTube if you want to look at that. Well, with that said, let's get into the review of what we have from last week. And we'll always start it with our disclaimer here, that we are not a gambling site. What we do here is for fun. It's for entertainment purposes. It's a chat among friends about football, talking about what we love, what we don't like. We can even rant about the officials a bit. I'll try to be nice, But yeah, it's a lot of great things in our sports, but don't trust me to pick your teams for you. And you will see it this week why you don't want to trust me this week, because it's just, it's one of those things. But at the end of the day, we just pick up straight up winners, losers. We don't do points. It's just a fun thing and a hobby for us to have fun. And with that, I will sing our buddy CJ says everyone assumes I think naughty thoughts all the time, rightly so. Yeah, we know that. And follows up with Dadman remembers the 80s. CJ, I actually remember the 70s a lot. That's how old I am. So, but that's okay. Well, it's all good. It's all good. 70s, 80s. Although there was a difference. 70s were disco and leisure suits, and the 80s were parachute pants and big hair. Oh, hey. I don't know which was worse. Maybe the missus or anybody else out there that was around then could tell me which was worse. So with week 7 through complete now, we are over halfway through the 13-week regular season. With week 7, our particular guest this week was the great Clobbering Times. He's on Twitter as Ben Grimm. He has his own YouTube channel, Clobbering Times. Great comic book guy, great knowledge stuff. It was an awesome chance to talk football with him and his experiences, more professional football. So I encourage you to go back and watch Thursday night's episode, even if you skip through the stat part and the game previews a bit, but focus on the parts where he talked about his football experiences and things that he enjoyed, and it was really a nice time. And all 6 of the episodes, if you've not seen any of these other episodes, go back and look at them. They've all been very special in their own ways. Each week there's something different that the guest brings to the show with their views of football, what they like, what they don't like, the things that matter to them, and even different methodologies for picking games. Our first week, the missus used some point scoring system based on uniforms, bands, names, words, various things to come up with winners and losers. The next week, Squeaka used cheese to pick the winners. Mark was an engineer, just did it very formulaic, and others had different methodologies along the way. So go back and watch some of those shows. You'll find them fun and very interesting. Well, okay, so with that said, week 7. This is the list of games that we had last week that were involved SEC teams. Only one game was out of conference, and that was Arkansas traveling to Brigham Young to play. Arkansas won 52-35. Then LSU played at Florida, which, no secret here, I'm a Florida fan, although this year is really becoming very frustrating very fast. LSU wins that one 45-35. The next is Vanderbilt, played at number 1 Georgia. Georgia won that one going away 55-0. Then Mississippi State traveled to Kentucky, where Kentucky pulled out the win 27-17 this week. Auburn played at Ole Miss. Ole Miss won 48-34. Auburn had some offense this week, but just could not keep up with Ole Miss in this game. And then the granddaddy game of the week, the one that had big ramifications around not just the SEC, but even nationally, and we'll see that in a moment, is Alabama at Tennessee, where Tennessee won a nail-biter. It was almost a video game in some ways, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, 52-49. It was definitely a track meet. And as I said, I tweeted out at some point during the game, it was like, Johnny Majors and Bear Bryant were not coaching this game with the points and the passing. So it was an interesting week, to say the least, of games. There were some good games, awesome games, and some not so good. Well, we'll look at the picks. Well, and the winner is this week. Well, as I said, these are the 3 common games where Clobby and I both chose the winning team. There were 2 games where we both chose the team, but the team lost, and that was we both selected Mississippi State, who lost at Kentucky, and the Gators that lost at home to LSU. So those 2 will not be shown here. So it comes down to one game this week between the 2 of us, and it was the Arkansas BYU game, and the winner is Clobbering Times, who took the Pigs in this game over BYU when I took the homestanding BYU, and Dadman gets So congratulations to great Clobbering Times. Thank you for him being our guest last week, and he wins this week by going 4-2, 4 right, 2 wrong. I hit 500 this week at 3-3. Overall, I have an 8-game lead on the guest at 53 right, 15 wrong. And the guests have a combined 45-23 record with this. And then, go Clobbering. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Great guest, great thing, great time we had with him this week. So, with that being said, that is where we stand with the picks and the guest picks this week. So, like I said, if you have any things out there, feel free to shout them out, chat, say something. We will take a few minutes to look at a little bit of the results of what happened Saturday with this. The AP poll, coaches poll came out. I tend to be an AP poll snob. I'm not so much with the coaches poll. So, but first we'll look at the overall SEC standings. We still have a tie, half game difference. Georgia and Tennessee are both undefeated at the top of the SEC East. The 2 teams play in a few weeks in Athens. So I'm sure that place is going to be a madhouse when Tennessee comes in. I bet hotel rates are going to be expensive. Two undefeated teams that will most likely decide the Eastern Division winner. Because at this point, there's not many difficult teams on Tennessee's record. Probably the toughest might be Kentucky. But Kentucky's still just up and down, and they have to make the trip to Knoxville this year. So, Kentucky's offense has been very inconsistent over the times where Tennessee has had a very powerful, high scoring offense this year. And 52 points put up against an Alabama defense is proof of that. But if we look down through the rest of the SEC East, it's falling out. Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida in that next middle group. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning of the year, Florida would be a wild card depending on their coaching and their quarterback play. And unfortunately, they're falling apart. 1-3 in the conference, 4-3 overall. So it looks like they're going to fall back down towards the bottom half of the bracket. Well, Vanderbilt and Missouri, no surprise, both winless in the conference, both with losing records. Vanderbilt has not won a conference game in 2 years, and some of the speculation is, though, this year with Vanderbilt's 3 wins already and a productive offense, that when they play Missouri, that could be the game that Vanderbilt finally wins. That's a conference game. Will they beat any other teams in the conference? Probably not. But, hey, they're better off than they have been in prior years. Looking at the West, Ole Miss has taken the lead now, half game over Alabama by being undefeated. Alabama is tied now with LSU with 1 loss. But still, Alabama controls its destiny. It wins out the rest of the way. It still wins the West and goes into the SEC title game in Atlanta at the end of the year. Mississippi State, A&M, Arkansas, Auburn are pretty much out of it because, practically speaking, LSU is in still, but they have to beat Alabama and Ole Miss, and that's a tall tale for this LSU program who got crushed at home by Tennessee. And the East will come, as I said before, will come down to that game in a few weeks in Athens. So, and that's the status of the SEC after week 7. Some surprises. The East is pretty much, I think, pretty well where people expected it, but the big surprises in the West are in the West, where you have Texas A&M and Arkansas at the bottom. A&M was expected to challenge Alabama, even be projected at least second in the West. Arkansas was up and coming, projected to have a really good year too. Both teams have had difficulties this year, and that's probably the biggest surprise so far in the SEC this year. Some may say Tennessee is a big surprise, and they are a surprise looking at it. But I think if you watched them last year closely, watched their coaching, watched how they started off playing this year, I'm not so surprised. They won the game against Florida at home, and they pulled off the upset the other day. That was a telltale sign right there. A huge win that they had there. So I'm not so surprised with Tennessee, but they've held serve. It just went out in the East now. As a result of Saturday's games, this is the current AP Top 25. We still have the Georgia Bulldogs ranked number 1 with 31 first-place votes, 7-0 record. Ohio State is still number 2. But this week, because of the win over Alabama, Tennessee jumps Michigan and Clemson to the third-place spot in the AP poll and accumulating 15 first-place votes. Alabama and Ole Miss are 6 and 7, respectively, while Kentucky moved up 3 spots to 19, and Mississippi State dropped 8 spots as a result of the loss to Kentucky. There's still 6 teams in the top 25 overall. You just down from what it usually is. Usually earlier this year, there were 8 SEC teams at one point. But as the teams like Florida, Arkansas keep losing, Mississippi State's about to fall out if they lose again. LSU made an appearance briefly. But the conference is still represented pretty well with 6 teams in the top 25. If you look through this, though, there's some interesting national stories, though. Who will fill the other 3 spots in the national championship game with the top 4 teams? There will be one, either Georgia, Tennessee, or Alabama, depending on who wins the SEC. Will the SEC get 2 teams in? And then it's a fight between the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, and maybe the ACC, Clemson, or even Big 12 with TCU sliding up to 8 and UCLA and Oregon at 9 and 10. So, still a lot of football to be played, 6 more weeks. Who knows how this will play out, but this is really where college football gets exciting this time of year, coming down to the end. You get more rivalry games, see what happens, and what the fallout is. I mean, Ohio State, Michigan is always a big game, but with one of them winning, it almost automatically eliminates the other from a national title shot. So, wow, Tulane. All right, thank you, Miss Dadman. We have a Tulane reference today. Thank you. We just didn't have a UTEP reference, but yeah, we got the Beavers in today, and we got Tulane, and even Oregon, I think, earlier. So, hey, that's all good. So, let's go here, back to here, and so as we said earlier, the big game yesterday. I'm going to say one thing real quick with the Florida LSU game, real quick. Because it's one that I am close to. Very disappointing, losing at home to LSU again. It's 4 losses in a row in the series the Gators have to LSU, and some years LSU's not been very good. Of course, 2 years ago the Gators struggled while they were 6th in the nation, yet they had a chance to win the game until 4th down stop they had, and then one of the Florida defenders tackled the LSU receiver, grabbed his shoe, and threw it 30 yards downfield. So then LSU kicked a long field goal, won it, and the rest was history. And it seemed like it was a downhill spiral for the Gators after that point. But really, the Gators started good on offense. They were up 21-14 at one point, and then just gradually fell behind, couldn't keep up offensively. But then the defense had no defense to really slow down LSU's offense, which was a kind of surprise because LSU had struggled at times against FSU and against Auburn and even Tennessee, but they had no problems with the Gators last night. So it's going to be a long year in Gainesville. People tell me to be patient and all this, but I don't know, because I'll tell you what, I might do that, but I will also watch the situation in Rocky Top very closely, because up in Rocky Top, they have a second-year coach. Josh Heupel had been the head coach at UCF, University of Central Florida, and took the job at Tennessee. Last year was his first year. They had some up and down games. They had some disappointments, but it seemed like they were very solid. They were not bad losses, and some were close losses that could have gone either way. Whereas I see what Florida's doing is they're just not looking good at times. To me, the Florida situation is how good the coach will be. I'm told to be patient. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Tennessee coaching situation right in just a second. And finish in 24th spot. Yeah, that's better than Florida right now. Yes, I'm sure Tulane might be better than patient. What's that? Yes, exactly, CJ. I don't have much patience. And it's what fans do to tell each other to take it easy on the coach and stuff like that. And I'm also going to just clarify also, the criticism is not so much the quarterback situation is very frustrating because it's very up and down and inconsistent. One game you threw for 400 yards and scored 30-some points at Tennessee. The next week you threw for 60, or 2 weeks later you threw for 66 yards against Missouri, barely scored points, and then it's a frustrating thing. But the kid's young, he's developing. To me, it becomes a coaching issue. My complaints I reserve more for the adults. the coaches. Kids get out there, do the best that they can as their coach to do, and that's what they are. They're out there. They're not professional athletes yet, and they're still developing. But I can criticize a coach that goes for fourth down on his own side of the field way too much, or refuses to kick a field goal because they don't want to take 3 points. So, as I say that, CJ, take it easy on the coach. My good coach when I was 10 used to get all the parents yelling at him. They're probably used to it when they get to high level. Yeah, I tell you, you gotta have a thick skin when you're a coach at those levels. You got to. It comes with the territory. But you also look at it, how much are the coaches being paid these days? I mean, they're making way more than the president, and almost up there to CEO levels in some cases with what they're making. So, you're getting paid that kind of money, it comes with the territory. But with the game yesterday, the game, Alabama, Tennessee, just some thoughts and observations. This is probably one of the best games I've seen in a number of years. Both teams. Honestly, I thought when Tennessee got up 28-10, I didn't think Alabama was going to come back on the road with that environment and all that. But it leads me to my first takeaway from this game, that Alabama is still the big dog in the SEC. And yes, they lost the national championship to Georgia last year. But Georgia had that year. But Alabama's been very consistent up at the top. And until they fall frequently, to me, they're still the big dog in the conference. Down 28-10, most teams would have just fallen apart, gotten blown out, gone away. But Alabama did what Alabama does. They chipped away, took the lead at one point, and had a chance till the very end, until the missed field goal with about 39 seconds left. So you got to give them credit, because they did what most teams don't do. Alabama still controls their destiny with the West to get to Atlanta. Alabama wins out. They win the Western Division. They're in the SEC championship game. In the SEC championship game, in a neutral site, either playing Georgia or a rematch with Tennessee, it's a different situation. This time Tennessee had the home field advantage, which did make a difference. It was significant. But many times when you get that rematch on a neutral site game, things can be different. I remember in the 96 national championship season for the Gators, they lost at Doak Campbell at FSU 24-21 in a very close, very nasty, heated game. But it was very close. But when they played in a rematch in the Sugar Bowl, it was a different game. It wasn't even close. The Gators blew them out in the neutral site. So that means Bama's still dangerous. Put them on a neutral site, they're probably even more dangerous. For those various reasons. So that's the first takeaway, that Bama's still a big dog in the conference. But looking at some of the individual stats in this game, if you look at it, was just incredible. It was Bryce Young threw for 455 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Hendon Hooker for Tennessee threw for almost 400 yards, 5 touchdown passes. He threw his first interception in over 200 pass attempts, but still 5 touchdown passes, and they were all to the same receiver, Jalen Hyatt. So it was almost like a video game to watch at times with the way they moved the ball up and down the field. It was a very clean game. There were a few turnovers, but it was not bad. Probably the worst part was a field goal, the place kicking. Bama missed a field goal. Tennessee missed an extra point. Each of those could have come back to haunt the other, but they didn't. They stayed. Both teams managed to survive those mistakes at that point. Let's see. And Geeky says, I do not want to come against Bama again this year. They'll kill us. Saban is not a happy camper. No, and you're probably right, because so many times in the rematch, the team that lost the first game will win the rematch. I've seen it way too many times. Yes, you're right. They will have different plans. They will have something ready, and the fact of a neutral site game does make a big difference sometimes. But yeah, but the thing is, in the West, I don't trust Ole Miss to in Lane Kitten to beat Alabama. It's not like Tennessee. It's just a different team, um, different makeup. I've seen both teams. I've seen more Tennessee. I think Tennessee is definitely a much better, well-rounded team than Ole Miss is, and uh, I think they have a better head coach. I'll talk about that again in a second. So, but yeah, that's a good point. I would not blame you if I was a Tennessee fan. I would not want to be there. And Neyland is louder than any other stadium I've been to. Yes, I've heard that too. I have cousins that have gone to Neyland for road games for the Gators, and it is crazy up there, Which leads me to the second point with the game from yesterday. That Tennessee is for real this year. What you saw yesterday was not a fluke. I think it started last year, and I started taking notice last year with the way they were playing closer games, and they were losing some games, that they shouldn't have, and that were frustrating. But one of the biggest things that happened last year was they had the emergence of a real quarterback with Hendon Hooker, a guy that I did not like when I saw him at Virginia Tech. I didn't think he was very, very good, but he has been world class since he's been in Knoxville. And that has been one of the pieces that Tennessee has missed for many, many years. But the other piece that Tennessee has missed that I really believe makes them for real this year and possibly down the road is their head coach. The head coach, he will take risk at times, but he's not one of those that, like Les Miles was, of going for every fourth down. That's why I kind of have some concerns with that with Gainesville. But Heupel seems to be balanced. He doesn't let the game get big to him. He's he doesn't panic, and maybe that's because he played the game. He was a quarterback at Oklahoma, national champion, I think a Heisman winner also. He's been on the big stage. These things don't affect a guy like that. But those two factors have really made Tennessee a real team this year. And that's the second takeaway, that Tennessee could have folded on the stage, even at home. They didn't. They stepped up. And in the game, when Alabama came back, took the lead. When you lost to a team for 15 years in a row, you have them down big, and then they come back on you. You do start to doubt yourself. You do start, panic could set in, but you know what? It didn't. Tennessee stayed the course, managed to fight through, and won the game. And that's what it matters at the end of the day, is the winning the game. And it was not an ugly win, but as people do say, an ugly win's better than any loss, and that's true, because at the end of the day, especially in college football, you can't afford to lose the games. You need to win that game. So a win's a win. And the third takeaway I have from this game is a big but. Big but. I can't not lie. Okay. That's a Dadman attempt at humor. Yes, I'm bad. Thank you. Leave your comments in the chat with HR, and Mrs. will get back with you when she can. But the but for Tennessee is on several different levels. All right, thank you. Okay, at least somebody laughed. I like it. Thank you. But hey, the but is on several different levels. For this year, the immediate situation, they still have to beat Georgia. If you're talking about SEC title, possible national championship shot, they have to win in Athens. It's not likely for them to be able to Georgia to lose twice this year, especially with a very, very weak Florida team, a weakened Kentucky team. Georgia's, even though they've struggled and looked vulnerable, their doubt that it's doubtful that Georgia would lose 2 games. They could lose 1, but not 2. So this really is it in a few weeks with Tennessee. You've got to beat Georgia. But even if they don't beat Georgia, even if Tennessee didn't beat Georgia, and they don't go to the SEC championship, don't go to National Title Game, this has been an outstanding season for this team and this fan base. This fan base has suffered for almost 20 years now, and not just mediocrity, and some very bad years. Florida's had some very bad years at times, but they've actually had good years along the way, more so than Tennessee has had. There have been years that Tennessee was supposed to beat Florida. They didn't. I remember one game was a 10-7 game up in Knoxville years ago. The Gator quarterback was Treon Harris, and Tennessee should have won that game that year, but somehow lost it. So, these people in this fan base deserve happiness this year and enjoy this year. So even if they don't play for an SEC title, national title, it's still a good season, and it's a one to be proud of and to take a lot of comfort in and enjoy football again, because people up there are very passionate. I've said before, I listen to the Sports Animal out in Knoxville. Why? They cover college football. Nobody down here does, and it makes me mad. The Sports Animal is awesome, and I love that station. So I'm almost becoming a closet Tennessee fan in a way, because I like their damn radio coverage so much. So, and they do it. This is how Tennessee does it. They do an all-day sports cast of the game for that. No, it could be 7 o'clock at night. They still do 12 hours of sports coverage. Down here, you're lucky to get a 2-hour pregame show, and then no talk during the week because everybody's so focused on the pros. So, and then CJ, I was too stunned that Dadman is. Hey, I told you I got his surprises. I'm full of surprises. And you say Ushigiki says, no way it's happening. We won't get curb stomped, but it'll be close. Exactly. Yeah, I remember that. We gave it up in the second half. Yeah, and it took a miraculous, really long field goal kick from a Gator kicker that I think could not even make half of his kicks that year. Well, not only did you lose to Treon Harris, who couldn't throw the football, the Gator kicker was a train wreck too, but he happened to make the right field goal. So, what? You got to be kicked out. Shh, our secret. But yeah, their sports radio coverage is so much better up there because they focus on some college football. I mean, everybody down here is the Jaguars, Tampa Bay stuff, and it's annoying. It's annoying for a college fan. So we talked about this year with Tennessee, the big but, the buts, but also going forward, there's a big but for going forward. Can they reload? Can they recruit? Can they replace Hendon Hooker when he leaves? Only time will tell. But in all honesty, I think the team is in a good situation with Josh Heupel going forward. And only his second year, and that says a lot. I mean, it says a lot in the second year. He actually really turned over a roster and used the previous guys' players to do what they've done. So, it's just too early to tell. Will they be the dominant challenge to Georgia in the East? But I will tell you, as a Gator fan, I'm concerned now because how do the Gators or even Kentucky try to challenge 2 teams now? It's hard enough to challenge a Georgia team that's returned to dominance. Now you've got to chase Tennessee and Georgia. Becomes a big thing, big and very difficult. So, but that's the takeaways I had. If anybody's got any last thoughts out in the chat about the game or thoughts with the football in general, if you got a question about how things go, just feel free to ask. That's what I want to be here for, to have some fun, to talk football, and, just enjoy the time together. Give me 1 second. So, had to get a little drink there. So, but, like I said earlier, if you haven't seen our previous week's podcast, go back and look at them. They were really fun and a lot of great stuff with our guests along the way. And I'll go ahead and we'll start wrapping up at this point. I appreciate everybody being here. This was a great time tonight, great chat, and say, let's see. All right, here we go. This is what I was waiting for, some little bit of stuff. I will say the officiating was a little oof. Well, two things. One, you've got Alabama there. There's always people that contest that Alabama gets calls. Even Georgia fans do. Especially the one call yesterday I think about was the pass interference in the end zone where the Alabama guy actually dragged the Tennessee defender down, and yet Tennessee got called for the interference that kept the drive alive and had a result in a Bama touchdown. But then again, if you've been around the Southeastern Conference very long, you will always know that officiating is a hot topic of conversation in every fan base. So it's just so sad. Yeah, it's so sad. Sometimes it's like you feel like they have to throw a flag, like they want to be part of the game too. And holdings and some of the personal fouls are very interesting. So, but I definitely will say that. Thank you for throwing that in, because that reminded me about that play. And but it goes with this. It goes with the territory. Officiating is a very hard job too. Even though they're paid and trained to do it, you do expect a certain level of, you expect better when they're paid and when they're trained to do this. But I've also done some amateur officiating myself, and sometimes it can, even your best intentions, that you can get it wrong, and you just keep going forward. So you just hope that the call doesn't really influence the outcome of the game to the point where it gives somebody a competitive advantage and a disadvantage to the other team. Yeah, I think the play that didn't get called for targeting should have been. It looked rough. Yeah, that's another area, the targeting calls these days. That's another area for debate, because a lot of people see. I personally don't care for targeting. I'm old school. I know that there's a thing for player safety that they're doing, but there's also the thing of playing the game the old way, the hard way, where the wide receiver can't run free over the middle of the field. Our quarterbacks have to take a hit, because you get inside their head and they get a little jittery. I think it was actually Tennessee earlier this year that knocked out two quarterbacks against Pitt. Actually, not one out, and the other guy was like hobbling by the end of it. But football's meant to be a rough game, and you punish the quarterback or the receivers, and to try to within the rules of competition and not playing dirty. There is a difference. So. And let's see what CJ said. I used to officiate too. I used to give all the kids red cards and eject them from the game. All right. Soccer's so much fun when there aren't any kids around. Yeah, there you go. There you go. It reminds me of a TV show where they punished the guy by having him throw everybody out of the pool at the end of it. That's hilarious. And everybody loves that. Great story there, CJ. Great story. Well, on that note, I will say we'll wrap it up here, unless there's again another last second question. But let me go ahead and we'll tease this Friday night's episode. This week we'll be on Friday night. Normally it's Thursday at 8, but there's some nights where we have to move to Friday night because to accommodate our guest. I got to see this. I'll leave you if football players could survive against my hockey players. There you go. Oh, could not. I agree with that. Hockey is a different thing. You want to see somebody that gets into a hockey game? Mrs. Dadman, put her up against the glass down on the ice. Oh boy. Talk about competitive nature. It's fun to watch. And rugby. Rugby is another good one too. So go Habs. Okay. Go Devils, although they stink again, Stowe. Well, this Friday, our special guest at 7 p.m. Eastern will be Esh Singh, a friend of mine from the UK. So he's going to be 5 hours ahead of us, and it's going to be awfully interesting with this and a fun discussion from a friend of mine in the UK to see what he thinks about football and the stats and the numbers and stuff. So it's not going to be your normal episode. But we're going to have a lot of fun with this thing too. It's going to be a riot, I believe. And then we got more Ducks talk, and we got CJ with his full contact badminton. Oh, geez. Full contact crochet with the kids when they were little. Yeah, those hammers were really nice with those kids. They were right level. But join us Friday night. Esh will be a blast. Hey, okay. Hey, Wade, how are you? Gosh. Hey, Wade, you're going to have to go back and watch this episode again. I think She's So Geeky She's Geeky will back me up with this. I praised your Tennessee Volunteers to the high hilt. I praised your Rocky Top. So, I'm on the bandwagon this year. I'm not sure if I'm like Georgia beating Georgia level yet, but I think you guys are real and are having a very special season, and y'all definitely deserve it. So, okay, Geeky. Okay, I'll call you Geeky then. Thank you. Yeah, I need all the help I can get. So, I was going to end Wade, but if you want to talk about something, throw some questions out. I mean, if you want to, if I can, I don't mind. If people want to stay, they can stay. If they want to leave, they can leave. I just, if you got some questions or you want to know something specific, throw it out, and I'll go back and talk about it. But I'm just teasing for Friday night that we will have a great show with Esh from the UK, so it'll definitely be an interesting thing. But the short story for you, Wade, is you guys are going to have a good year regardless of whatever. And I like your coach, and I think that you're going to be trouble for years for the Gators, definitely. I got my concerns as a Florida fan, but I think you're real. I think you've got a solid head coach, and it's nowhere but up for y'all now. And y'all really struggled and suffered for a long, long time. Why did it come down to field goal? Well, Wade, I'll tell you why. What happened with that? You're still even though you're playing at home, even though you had a really great environment, you're still playing Alabama. And you're still playing Nick Saban. This team has been under him dominant, except for the first couple years. But since then, they've been consistent. They are not to have the success that they've had. You got to take them serious all the time. I thought at 28-10, Tennessee was going to walk away with it. I thought. But, you're talking about a dangerous animal here. This number one team that's used to, winning all the time, you knocked them in the teeth. They got mad. They came back. And that's to be expected. You're playing the number one team with probably arguably the best coach in college football right now. And they came back. It's not like your team choked. God knows I've seen a lot of chokes, especially being a Florida fan over the years. Y'all did not choke. Y'all were fighting the whole time. Alabama's good. You got to give credit to the other team for being good. And they've been good for a darn long time. They've got a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback there. So why did it come down to a field goal? It's part of the game. It's what it is. Just be grateful that Alabama missed its field goal. So it's not one field goal. It came down to 2 field goal attempts. Alabama had a shot, missed it, wide right. You guys, a bigger question is not why did it come down to field goal? Why did Alabama play such a light, soft defense where Tennessee could get in field goal range in 2 plays? That's the question I've got. What happened? They gave Hooker so much time to throw the ball, and they got down. And this leads me to another point that I did want to say why I like Heupel better, because I saw in the Gator game last night a major clock mismanagement at the end of the first half where the Gators, with 2 timeouts, let it pretty much go down to 1 second to throw a Hail Mary. And then when they threw a Hail Mary, it ended up 10 rows in the student section. Now, didn't even get to the end zone. Heupel had his timeouts. He had his players set. When they got the ball back at the missed field goal, boom, boom, and then immediate timeouts. Each time it was immediate timeouts. That's coaching. So, my question is, what happened to Alabama's defense to give up that much yardage in 2 plays at the end there? So, it really is, anytime you can beat a team like Alabama, whether it's home or on the road, you take it, even if it comes down to a field goal. don't question your team. You've got a good, solid team. Alabama got where they are with a lot of hard work, and they have a hell of a quarterback. So that's a long story short for it, that I've got it their way, at least in my opinion. With that, yeah, absolutely. Everybody loves seeing Saban lose, especially on Twitter. The clip that's been out there, Geeky, I know, tweeted it out, and others have tweeted out. It was very reminiscent of Spurrier, Geeky. I agree with that, but without the advisor. So that was definitely a good clip. I bet the Gen Z Alabama fans will be calling for Saban's head because of this canceling. No, I don't think so yet, because I think the good thing with college football, all the youngsters and all the people can do whatever they want to. It's the boosters that control college football. It's the pocketbooks. And then we got that, and then it just, you misgendered football. Oh, that's too funny. Oh, man. Yeah, and just because you lost to Tennessee is a pushover team. Alabama doesn't lose to Tennessee, LOL. And that's what I'm sure. Honestly, a lot of Alabama fans think that. I know as a Gator fan, that's the attitude I had to Tennessee for so long, is we don't lose to Tennessee. It is something, but it happens. Right now, I'm going through that with Kentucky. Why is Florida losing to Kentucky all the time? So that's kind of a joke, but you know what? It is a thing that mentality can develop in a fan base very, very quickly when you win 15 games in a row. Let's see. Okay. What happens if Tennessee loses to Georgia where they still get to playoffs? Not likely. And this, from this reason why, because the way the whole playoff structure is set up. Because at that point, if Georgia beats Tennessee, Georgia's going to Atlanta against Alabama. Both will be in the SEC championship game. In that case, one may lose, but they would go to the playoffs. The committee's not going to put a one-loss Tennessee team in above a team that, because even though they only have one loss, and say theoretically Alabama has two losses, they're not going to put a team that did not play for its conference title into the playoffs. I would be frustrated, yes. That's a thing for debate. Should there be an 8 or 12 team playoff? And I know that there's a lot of discussions on that right now, is to expand the playoffs to get more teams involved. Like some of the non-Power 5 conferences, like last year, Cincinnati managed to make it, but undefeated, but they barely got into the playoffs. There are a lot of teams that are getting left out of this now. There's concern to keep the bowl system alive while having a playoff system, but that's another topic for another show as to whether you can have both or not, or if the bowls are even really past their due. So, yeah. So it's, that's kind of the way it is, Wade. It's Tennessee. If Tennessee wants the playoffs, they got to beat Georgia. And I think the same thing would happen if Georgia loses that game and Alabama Tennessee playoff, and then Alabama beats Tennessee. Tennessee could get in depending on how close they play it. It'd be like last year where Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. Both got into the playoffs. Then Georgia wins and Alabama wins, and Georgia beats Alabama in the title game. That's the scenario what Tennessee's got to hope for, that they get into the championship game, and if they lose the rematch to Alabama, then they get into the playoff situation. You've got to get to the championship game. I don't, even one loss, it's not going to matter. I'd be frustrated as a fan, yes, but that's just the reality of it that they've got to deal with. So, yeah, okay, that same comment. Yes, get a really good bowl game, but that's it. Yeah, and that goes towards the topic of, and I said that's another topic. If you go back and watch the show that I had with Culture Casino, we touched on that a little bit about the bowl games. Are they even worth having around anymore? I mean, you've got these questions. Who really, in the old days, you had a poll deciding a national title. Everybody just went to a bowl game, is what it was. And, the tickets were not too expensive back then. But honestly, the last time I tried to look into a ticket for where a bowl game is here, I'm like, I'm not paying that to go see Mississippi State. I mean, maybe $15, $20 I might, but I'm not paying $50 plus. I don't want to watch. I like college football. I would go watch anybody if it's affordable or cheap enough. And that's the problem. I'm just cheap, but and then the bowl game, is it really a game or just a glorified exhibition? Is what it comes down to. So, well, hopefully I addressed your question there, Wade. Go back, like I said, watch all the other stuff in detail, but you guys enjoy this year. Y'all gonna have fun. You have every right to be happy and brag and everything else. It's just gonna come down to when they play Georgia. But even if you lose to Georgia, it's still a hell of a season. Y'all got a bright future with your coach. So, just think you could still have Derek Dooley or Butch Jones or even the last guy. So, and losing to Florida every year in Alabama, there's a lot to be happy for. So, all right. Well, on that note, thank you again for that last minute expanded part there for you. And that's what I'm saying, folks. You come in with questions like that or comments, feel free. This is stuff I'm here for, what I enjoy talking about, and we can have good discussion. Y'all can discuss in the chat and really have a good time with this podcast. And I will go ahead and let's see if I should report something. Not usually tonight, I don't think so, because I'm on a different stream with Mark D with a C where we talk geekery stuff on Sunday night. I usually play with Ords on Wednesday night or so. If something happens, I might show up over there, but at this point, probably not. But look for me there Wednesday or sooner if I do another Fortnite stream myself. So, and hopefully next week I got something brewing. I need to confirm some things. We'll have a much shorter recap show next week because there's possible show and tell of something that which is a show where I take some possessions that I've purchased or bought over the years and I talk about them. Like a couple weeks ago, the show and tell involved some Universal Halloween Horror Nights classes, like for classic horror movies, and Universal Monster lunchboxes and stuff, and showed those and taught those. And I actually got surprised with Purple Valkyrie visiting the show to help me talk with it, which was really a surprise and a real treat too. So looking for that next Sunday. But I'll have watch Twitter. I'll show you I'll get with you. I'll Instagram message you after the show, CJ. Okay, I heard back. But like I said, Friday night we got the Great Esh Sing, and it's going to be completely off the wall and unexpected. The more, the better. So we'll see what happens with this. I'm looking forward to this show, and also follow me. You see where I end up going. I usually say where it is at. I'm Dadman Walking 55 everywhere. I make it easy for everybody on Twitter, on Twitch.tv, and even on YouTube. And please share the videos out, retweet, get it to your friends, especially if they like football and stuff and some of the other topics. Check out the other content on the channels. Follow us if on Twitch if you're not already. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube and like the videos too, as well as sharing them out. We want to get to 100 on YouTube so that we can get the custom channel ID thing, which makes the link easier. I don't fully understand it myself, but everybody tells me that that's important and something good to have. So, let's just do it and get 100. And I believe I owe everybody a 24-hour stream if I do that. So why I did 24, I don't know. I just got excited, I guess, for 100. 24 should be like 1,000, or something where you get monetized. But hey, let's start, let's try to reach for the goal. But you know what? Even if it doesn't, love to see y'all at the show on Friday night. Talk football. Love you here because I just love talking football. Geeky, Wade, thank y'all for the football input tonight. And everybody in the chat. CJ, you were here. Let's see, I think it was Mrs. Dadman, of course, as always. And And Small Time Republic, I hope you at least got to lurk through this. Love having you here, man. Love having you here. And just everybody that came through. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but I appreciate the support, and I hope we can grow this from further. And you never know how this goes this year. Maybe next year we'll do. Maybe we'll expand it, do more around the country. I know this year the intent was to start in the SEC, something I know more about, and then maybe we'll grow bigger than that and have even more fun. So I love sports, so it's fun to talk sports ball. I agree, because geeky, it's like nobody talks sports. And I try to tell people, if you want geeky or nerdy, there's nothing better than sports. For one reason, statistics. There's so many statistics now: baseball, soccer, hockey, football, basketball. They've invented so many new stats over the years. You can really geek and nerd out over just stats. But I don't know, maybe it's a fear of math. Who knows? So, but anyway, follow us on these channels. Follow, like, subscribe, as we said, and we'll see you next time. Like I said, watch for Twitter for any type of Fortnites that come up. But if not, then our next football weekly will be Friday night at 7 p.m. Thank you for being here. Y'all all have a great rest of your weekend, and bye, and see you next time.